Hey folks, BlackCross here. Welcome to another video game review, guys. You're probably asking why I'm wearing this helmet. And, well, there's a number of reasons why. Reason number one, it fits to the theme of today's video review. The other reason is because it's protecting me of the future comments that I might be receiving by the time I get done reviewing this game. And oh boy, I guess I better get ready and just tell you like it is. The original Dragon's Dogma was released on the PlayStation 3 and I believe the Xbox 360 as well. And I didn't play it when it came out at launch. I played it a little bit much later. The time that I had recorded playing my Let's Play that I did years ago, that was my first attempt of actually playing through Dragon's Dogma, and that was because a friend of mine actually recommended me to play the game. And I was like, okay, let's give this a shot. And at the time that I played through Dragon's Dogma, my only complaint was the fact that I didn't like how the frame rate was. The frame rate was very rough in that game. With the sequel coming out and everything like that, I saw the gameplay trailer and everything like that, and it seemed like it was running on like potentially a new gameplay engine, or potentially it might be a different game entirely. So I was like, okay, maybe this one will be just as good, right? So before playing Dragon's Dogma 2, I ended up going back to Dragon's Dogma to play it, because last time I played it, I only played it as a fighter. This time I decided to play as a mage/sorcerer, which was really fun. But that was the biggest problem that I had, with the fact that you could only really enjoy Dragon's Dogma if you played it under a spellcaster. Now I didn't really go into any further beyond that, but I was like, okay, the sorcerer class is clearly OP. Like, obviously OP. I mean, if you play Dark Souls, you know that magic is overpowered as shit. Unless you play Dark Souls 2. In which case, that's different. So in Dragon's Dogma, it only makes sense that a sorcerer class is just as OP. So I decided not to go for a sorcerer class, but more of a melee fighter in Dragon's Dogma 2. So, getting ready to start playing Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm very excited to play it. What are my overall thoughts on Dragon's Dogma 2? This is where the protection comes in. So immediately right offhand, the biggest thing that I have the problem with is literally as soon as you get ready to start the game. You're immediately introduced to not only a normal mode, but you're also introduced to a casual mode. You would think casual mode would be easier, right? Wrong, apparently. Because casual mode does not make the game easier. It only makes it easier in terms of currency, which is the gold. Because for whatever reason, apparently visiting an inn costs roughly $1,000 in main game? Versus casual mode, where it reduces it down to practically half, to where you're not spending as much gold. Outside of that, I'm not sure if it's like experience point wise or anything like that. I didn't really get to research that much. I just know casual mode does not change the actual game difficulty, but rather the point situation in terms of currency and stuff, which I thought was odd. The other problem that I had an issue with was the health duration bar. Now I call it a duration bar because apparently this occurs throughout the game, where the character, if they're going through the wilderness and everything like that, fighting monsters, fighting enemies, so on and so forth, eventually their HP will just be restricted from getting any more restored. For example, for every hit, for every damage, or something like that, your duration bar shrinks your HP bar. And the only way to get it fully restocked is if you A, sleep at an inn, or B, which is new in Dragon's Dogma 2, where you get to sleep in the camp. Now on the one hand, the campsite is a pretty cool feature, because if you've ever played like Final Fantasy 15 or anything like that, if you rest at a camp, you have a chance to basically have your abilities realigned, or you get to cook, which will give you stat bonuses that will help your party throughout the day and stuff. But this also, much like how the inn would help you not only pass time, but also to help refix your HP to where it's fully back from where the duration shrinks it. I'm not sure why the developers decided to do this feature, but part of me just felt like it was very off-putting and wasn't really necessary. I get the concept of where they got the ideal from, because it's like, in reality, if you were out exploring and you fought a bunch of monsters, you would eventually be exhausted. Not just in terms of stamina, but your overall health in general. So naturally, your health would shrink, and if it shrinks enough, you won't be able to survive for very long, which makes it an extremely hard game. Thus, you would need to camp out as frequently as possible. Outside of that, the game is literally the same. I'm not even exaggerating, it's literally Dragon's Dogma, but with an update patch. Like, graphical updates, which is very appreciative, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the gameplay, very much the same. The abilities, I want to say, is somewhat the same. And, well, with the exception of like 3 different classes, not much has changed. Everything's just kind of the same. Even the story is almost the same. And I say almost the same because literally in Dragon's Dogma 1, when you basically play the game, you basically have to prove yourself of being the Arisen. In this case, it's very much the case, except slightly different because of how the story is. I'm not going to tell the story because spoiler warnings, but also too because really the main story is not really the face value of this review, sadly. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's almost like a copy and paste sort of in a way. And while even on the main story, the side quest is almost non-existent. Now, I understand the ideal why they did it this way, where it's like, yeah, you should encounter these side quests, or depending on how well informed you are of the game, you need to find them, which is understandable. But they're more fetch quests, really. The side quests in Dragon's Dogma 1 was like this in a way, where it was like more fetch quests, or escort missions, so on and so forth, which really, I felt like could have been better. But there isn't like a monster hunting quest segment, you know, where you have bounty hunts and stuff like that. It was never in Dragon's Dogma 1, and I was hoping that was added in Dragon's Dogma 2, but sadly they didn't do that either. So it's like, huh. It's kind of strange. What's more, in Dragon's Dogma 1, it had certain problems with NPCs not working correctly with some of the quests or even side quests depending. And this game suffers that problem very much so. You would think in 2025, in current console generations and current game programming, we would have more functioning games. For some reason, we still have a problem of not having functional NPCs. Like, we're not even talking about working NPCs. We're talking about NPCs that just do not want to function at all. The first indication that this was a problem was this one quest where I was trying to find this boy that was being took by wolves. After finding the cave, I was escorting him back into town. Halfway up, he keeps wanting to go backwards. Kid? We are 5 foot away from town. Why are you going the opposite direction? I ended up having to carry him the rest of the way. Oh, that was so annoying. And then, if not the case, there was another segment towards the post-game that really irritated me so much. Again, I don't want to go into spoiler details, but it really ruined me to where I didn't want to finish it, and I just felt frustrated at the end of it. So I was just like, skip it and just move on. So yeah, I felt like the side quests could have been programmed a little bit better, or at least the NPC's interaction to the quest line would be better performed in some way. Because the way they did it in this case, it was almost non-existent. Almost like as though as if you were disconnected from the game entirely. And that's the biggest problem that I have. I feel disconnect from this game. Every single time I want to find some kind of enjoyment or some kind of entertainment, it always seems to try to push it away from me. The only way I actually found really good, fun gameplay is if I just went off on my own, not even paying attention to the side quests, just go out, and explore the wilderness on my own. Just Breath of the Wild this shit, you know? Just no side quests, just going out, killing monsters, camping out in the wilderness, leveling up my classes and stuff. Any materials I find, I can use it to upgrade my equipment. That's all I did. And that's where I got the most enjoyment from. In fact, really, whenever I was going into, like, looking at the different vocations, there was one specific class that I wanted to try, which was the Mystic Spearhead. So I was like, okay, let's try this. Let's see what this ends up being. And after attaining it, I'm so glad I did, because it made the gameplay so much fun and entertaining. I absolutely love this class. I would actually like to go back through and actually try to attain the other classes, but I've heard that one of them doesn't really work that well or isn't that fun, which is the Trickster. I won't go into detail what it is, but it's mostly just what you call a buff and debuff guy, sort of like a sentinel or something like that, where it kind of casts buffs and debuffs, you know, debuffs the enemy and buffs your party and stuff. That's basically what I got the gist of it, but there was other classes that I wanted to try out later on too. But what was more irritating, more than anything else in the world, is the disconnect that I had from not only the game, but from the community that basically more or less is involved with Dragon's Dogma. Like, I thought Souls communities were crazy. No, these people are sadists, okay? These people create challenges for themselves. It's like, I type in, how do you make not Dark Souls, how do you make Dragon's Dogma 2 easier? How do you make it funner? And I got, oh, to make it easier, we're complaining about it being too easy. And I'm like, what? And then people coming up with challenges, fists only, shields only, and I'm like, you know, you get along real well with the Souls community right now. They're a bunch of, challenge runners right now that just love to meet you. So, yeah, needless to say, I had a field day trying to figure out how to get through this game and survive, much less to find some kind of enjoyment. Because, again, like I said before, this game feels so disconnect from the player and stuff like that. And it's not even from the fact that, obviously, the Arisen doesn't actually physically talk to people. You know, it's not like how in Metaphor Re Fantasio, the main protagonist actually occasionally does say something. No, it's like in Dark Souls where the protagonist doesn't talk at all. It just, you know, the character's voice to you and stuff like that. But even in Dark Souls and even Elden Ring, I had more enjoyment out of them just because of the easy access that I have of being able to teleport anywhere, being able to customize my character easily, and all that stuff. It just, in this game's case, it makes it harder to enjoy it. From either customizing your character to creating your character from classes and stuff like that. I get the ideal of why they did it this way and not change anything, but in my personal opinion, I feel like they could have done better if they had changed a few things. Here's what I mean. In Dragon's Dogma and Dragon's Dogma 2, your character does not have a actual lock-on reticle, not like a traditional one, like Kingdom Hearts or something. No, its lock-on reticle is more feels like auto-lock to whatever is the closest one. And by closest, I mean like this distance in game life, you know? It's like, from this distance is where it like actually locks on. Unless you're an archer, in which case it's almost any distance, which is pretty nice actually. But if you're an archer or a caster, your magic and arrows automatically hit the target, and if you're doing like actual specific precision locking, you can actually have a reticle of your own where you're actually aiming at the monster's parts and stuff like that, because some enemies have weaknesses in other parts of their bodies and everything. But there isn't like an actual lock-on system where your character actually locks on, because if there's like a swarm of enemy that comes in, it kind of locks anywhere depending on what's the closest enemy, which can work except for whenever the enemy bombards you. So it's just one of those things where it becomes hard and tedious and almost impossible to get through at times, which makes it difficult. Secondly of all, there's no real way to actually like change your vocations outside of just going into an inn, or for that matter, going into a vocation place where you can attain new abilities and stuff like that. No, you can only do it in those places. You can't do it in a campsite. You can change your equipment ability, but you can't change your vocations. At the end of the day, the best thing that I can say right now is that it feels like Dragon's Dogma 2.0, whereas essentially Dragon's Dogma, but with an updated story, updated vocations, updated graphics, but nothing else has been changed. The enemies are almost the same, with the exception of, like, arguably maybe 3 different species, but that's about it. The side quests are almost inaccessible, depending. The main story is questionable at times, and really the only good thing that I can say about the game, aside from the gameplay being occasionally fun, depending on where and how you do it, is more or less the immersion. Like, that's actually the one thing that I can say, is that this game immerses you so well, and graphically it is so beautiful. It's almost like a cinematic movie, which is scary but cool at the same time. Like, this game is so drop dead gorgeous, I just accidentally just kind of look at my main character's facial features and just go, this is nice, this is very nice. And it's like the game comes up and then I'm faced with some of the problems and I go, why can't you let me love you? I want to love this game, but you keep making me want to hate you. Why? And unlike in Dragon's Dogma 1, where, yeah, when you go from a city to the wilderness to a cave, you do access, like, load points and stuff like that. In Dragon's Dogma 2, there's no load screens, with the exception of, like, when you die, but that's obvious. No, from, like, leaving the town, going to the wilderness, and accessing to a cave or another town, there's no load screens at all. It's just flawlessly, seamlessly open. And it's like, it's so beautiful, and I love how this game looks. It's absolutely breathtaking. And, again, depending on the vocation class, depends on the abilities, and depending on how far you can get to and stuff like that, the game can be somewhat entertaining. It just, you have to work with the game. It's hard and frustrating, but if you can manage it, it can be entertaining. But you have to work for it. Like, I kid you not, this game expects you to somehow, I don't know how, but somehow, understand what the game wants you to do, and then work from there. Like, you have to figure out all the bugs, you have to figure out all the complications and everything like that. Basically, I would recommend, if it's your first time playing Dragon's Dogma, for that matter, if this is your first time, look up a walkthrough on how to play through the game and stuff like that, story progression, all this stuff and everything like that, because there are going to be hiccups. There's going to be times that you're going to have a problem, and you need to find a resolution on how to fix it and stuff like that. If you can do that, I think you might actually have some better enjoyment. And especially in terms of all the quests, because I actually looked through a Wikia page, and there's a lot of quests that I missed. There's like so much of them and stuff like that. But because of how freaking hard and tedious the game could be at times, I don't feel like going back through it, in all honesty. And knowing the currency change and stuff like that, like, again, like I said before, I actually went through a little bit through New Game Plus just to see, and then I saw all of a sudden from 500 to almost 3,000. I'm like, what happened? What? When I give you my overall rating review, I'm not rating it because of how bad the game is. I'm rating it because what I would recommend people. So in other words, if you play Dragon's Dogma 1, I would say, check out Dragon's Dogma 2. You might enjoy it. And I say might because there are still going to be problems that was previously in Dragon's Dogma 1, specifically PS4, not the PlayStation 3, because the frame rate not an issue. But there's going to be some graphical problems, some bugs, some issues and stuff like that, and even some gameplay issues depending. But there's also some enhancement that's been made that makes you really appreciate and enjoy the game overall. So I give this game a 3 out of 5. You may be permitted to comment. It's okay. If you love it, great. I'm glad you got some enjoyment. I just had a hard time trying to have fun with this game. And I mean, I had a hard time having fun with this game. Oh gosh. But it was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty fun. So anyway guys, that's gonna be it for this video, and I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy this little gag here that I've got, cause I ain't gonna lie, this helmet's actually kinda heavy. I'm gonna take it off right now. See you next video guys.